Okay, this is part 15 of my Python game engine programming tutorial series. And in the previous lesson, we were just having the cylinder hit the plane, and then it would start rotating on its own. Let's fire that up. When I press P, and then it goes, and if I left mouse click or hit the A key, then those objects take off like that. Alright, that's just kind of a review as to where we were. Right. Now in this case, a lot of times what you're doing within a game, or even if it's not a game, you want to switch the scene based upon something happening. So we'll do it in two steps. We'll do it in two different tutorials. And the first one we'll do is we'll switch the scenes manually, and we'll kind of get used to it. And then on the next lesson, we'll actually do it within code. So let's go into the scripting. Yeah, we're in scripting here. Let's look at this a little bit closer like this. So from here, we've had this object, and associated with this object we've had this code that I also called cube object in here, and with the cylinder I have code associated with that, and I had called that code cylinder object like this here, and it was doing its own thing. So in the same way that you can create new text files down here by clicking plus creates a text file, or you can press X and unlink it, and then you can switch between the files just by going in through here. Scenes are the same way, except they're done up here. And by default, these are, well, this one's actually called scene. I actually have it named scene 1, but yours is going to show up as scene like that. So I'm going to call it scene 1 here, and then I'm going to get a new scene by pressing the plus button. Well, you have all these options, and we're going to deal with the last one, just full copy of this existing scene. I've done a tutorial in my quick tip tutorials or my tutorials for new users that distinguishes between linking objects, and that's a really important distinction, but for now we won't worry about that. We'll just do a full copy of this scene. It's simpler. So I'll do a full copy of the scene, and notice as it renames it for us. So I'm just going to give it a new name, and I'll call it scene 2 here. But it is a different scene. If you switch between the two, they don't look different. But the important thing to notice is that if I right click on this, the name is cube, and if I go over to scene 2 and right click on it, it's cube.002. It's renamed it for me. And the same with cylinder in here is cube.002, but back in scene 1 it's called just cylinder. Alright, so the names have become completely different. And that's an important distinction, because when you copy the scene, it doesn't copy all the code again. You're using the same code, and we're going to have to change that here in a bit. So for starters, just to kind of get used to it, we'll do this scene switching through the logic bricks, and then in the next lesson we'll do it through the code, and then it'll make it simpler that way. So let's go into the game logic mode like here. I'm in scene 1. I'll use the plane as my object for putting a logic brick in, and then I'll add a sensor. I'm going to add a keyboard sensor. Maybe we'll use the S key. Press here, press S. I'll add an AND controller, connect those together, and then over here for the actuator I want to come down here and add a scene, and I'll connect those up. And then the mode that I want, instead of restart, I want set scene, and then I'm going to select the scene that I want, and that's going to be scene 2. So I'm basically saying when the S key is pressed within scene 1, switch to scene 2. I mean, it's really that straightforward. Alright, so let's go back into the next scene. Let's switch over to scene 2 now and press that, and it also will have to have the same thing set up. So I'll put a keyboard, and I'll just use the same key just for consistency. Connect those together, add another scene, actuator, and change that to set scene, and press back to scene 1 here. Alright, and so let's distinguish this. Let's change just, let me go into default mode here and grab this, and we'll just change the color a little bit. That way I know which scene is which. So scene 2 is green instead. So now scene 1 is orange instead. Alright, like this. Okay, so that should be enough to get it to work. For starters, let's see what happens when we do this. Let's just press P, and that's hitting the ground and going. Now if I press S, it switches the scene. Now you're gonna have to, we'll address this camera issue here in a bit. It uses your last view, and then I press it again, and you can see I'm switching scenes like this, so I know I'm in between the two. So I'm left clicking within scene 1, and that's working. Now if I go into scene 2 and if I left click, it's not working. Alright, so the reason that is not working is because there's two things going on. One thing is that because we're in scene 2, these have become renamed, and it's still using this. Let's go back into the scripting mode. It's still using this or the cylinder objects using the cylinder object code, but notice here. All right, hang on. No, let's use the other one first. Let's go to the cube object. All right. So within cube object, normally what we're doing, we're looking at the cube object here, and the code is coming down here, and it says add a projectile, which we knew was on layer 2, to this empty projectile, which was our empty. So in scene 1, that's going to work because that's called empty projectile. But if I switch over to scene 2, it's renamed it, and now it's called empty projectile 2. So they're not the same thing. So in order to fix that, what you have to do is I'll just come in here and I'll just copy this whole thing right now just for the moment. I'll just copy it all, and then I'm going to come over here and give this a new name, and I'm going to call this cube object scene 2, like that, and then I come here and paste it like that. And then since I know that those were named up here differently, just for starters, I'll just use these. Well, let's verify that even in layer 2, let's go look at layer 2. We're in scene 2, layer 2. I'm just going to shift and get that. Let's see what these are named. Target.002 and projectile.002. So it's renamed those as well. So that's why within scene 2 in this code here, this is going to have to be called projectile.002, and this one was, let's see, that should be empty projectile, yep, .002. So you can rename it how you want. 002. The target was called target.002, and then to empty projectile 2 was the other one's name, which was that, but now it's called empty projectile. That's not it. Where is it? Empty projectile, no, empty projectile 2.002, right? Just how it logically sounds. Okay, like this. So at least, and this is only for the keyboard event for the moment, and that's with the A key. I haven't done it to the left mouse key, but that would have to be changed as well. Alright, so now let's go back into scene 1. We'll start it up, and I'll press P, and then I'm going to left mouse click, and it works in here. Now I'm going to press S to switch scene, and now the left mouse click's not working, but if the A key, the A key is not doing it either. So let's see what I did error wise. So I know what the error is going to be, is that the logic bricks have to be changed as well. So under scene 2, we'll go into the logic bricks here, and where was that? That is associated with, let's see, with the cube object. See, notice it's cube object. It's trying to use the code from the previous thing. So I want to use cube object scene 2 like this. Alright, and notice when it's coming in, it's looking at this camera in scene 2 here like that. So I'm just going to take this camera, maybe I'll move it down here like this, and better rotate it on Z a little bit. Yikes, I'll maybe move it on its individual origin, RZ. Alright, kind of looking down the scene like that, and maybe RX, move it up a little bit. So now we should be looking at that camera when it switches the scene. Alright, so now let's go back into scene 1 one more time and press P, and now left click should work and A should still work. That's scene 1. We haven't done anything different there. Now I'm going to press S. I've switched to scene 2. Now you see I'm in that new camera view. Left click should not work still because I haven't changed that, but now A, oh no, A is still not working. Alright, still have a bug. We're going to fix it quickly, unless I accidentally change the wrong scene. That's cube object in scene 1. And scene 2 is cube object scene 2. So that should work there. Alright, let's look at the cube object. Oh, I know what it is. So we'll go into the scripting. And we'll go to cube object scene 2. So let's see what we're looking at up here. We'll get the controller, current scene, show the mouse. Here's the problem. Yellow cylinder is equal to, no, it's not yellow cylinder. It's now cylinder.002. And icosphere is also target. Let me see. Yeah, we see the problem. All these, that's going to be icosphere.002. Yikes, didn't want to do that. .002, icosphere.002. Let me see what else. Make sure I'm trying to get enough so we can get it going. I mean, I think you see where we're heading with it. Unless these are giving me errors down here. They may, just because they're not named in that scene. So we're going to give these, we're just going to fix those names. Alright, let's see if that's enough for starters. Icosphere, yellow cylinder. Yeah, okay. Alright, so now go back to scene 1. Press P. There's my left mouse, there's my A key. Now switch to scene 2 with the S key. Press P. Now P is working, and press A, and A is working. So there we go. So it was being confused because I didn't have all the objects named appropriately in here. So that brings us to the point that when you add scenes up in here, and if you go watch that other tutorial, what this does, when you link objects or object data, basically you're not making a copy of the data. You're basically, it's like a pointer if you're a programmer in C. You're basically looking at where the existing data is, and you're just using a copy of the existing data from the other scene. Well, that's okay in some cases, but then if I come over here, if I had made a link of the scene and changed the color in here in scene 1, then it would also change it in scene 2. And also, if I'm in scene 1, if I had deleted this object, if I had created a linked scene, and then I was in scene 2, it would also have deleted it in scene 2 as well. So when you make a full copy, it doesn't matter. Full copy means in scene 1 I could delete this, but I could go over into scene 2 and it would still be there. Alright, so that'll take a little while to get used to, but this will kind of get you started just for now, and then in the next lesson we'll work on doing this in code. Alright, well that's for now, and I'll see you in the next lesson.